For years, Americans have debated the FBI raid on Mar-a-Lago. Was it necessary? Was it justified? Or was it rushed under political pressure? This week, newly declassified FBI memos added a new layer to that debate, not by making accusations, but by raising serious questions about how that decision was made in the first place. What these memos actually are. Let's begin with what we know. Recently declassified FBI emails and internal memos from 2022 were turned over to Congress. They document internal discussions between FBI field offices and the Department of Justice before the August 2022 search of Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence. These documents are not opinion pieces. They are contemporaneous communications written by FBI officials while the investigation was ongoing, and their tone is strikingly cautious. 2. The core issue: probable cause. At the center of these memos is a single legal standard: probable cause. In the United States, law enforcement must demonstrate probable cause before executing a search warrant, especially when the search involves a private residence, and especially when it involves a former president. According to multiple FBI communications from June and July of 2022, agents in the Washington field office expressed repeated concerns that this standard had not been clearly met. That alone doesn't prove wrongdoing, but it does raise an important question. Why was there such internal disagreement? 3. What FBI agents were saying internally. In one June 2022 memo, FBI officials noted that despite numerous interviews, very little evidence had been developed identifying who, if anyone, was culpable for mishandling documents. They acknowledged the possibility that additional boxes existed at Mar-a-Lago, but also warned that much of the information supporting a search warrant was single-source, uncorroborated, and potentially outdated. Those are not minor concerns. Those are the kinds of issues investigators are trained to take seriously. 4. Escalating concerns. In July 2022. By July, the concerns had not diminished. They had intensified. Emails show FBI officials expressing disagreement with DOJ attorneys about the scope and legality of a proposed search warrant. Some agents questioned whether there was sufficient recent evidence to justify searching Trump's personal spaces, including his bedroom. Others raised concerns about logistics and the absence of new facts supporting probable cause. One internal message summed it up bluntly: "We haven't generated any new facts." 5. Disagreement between FBI and DOJ. What stands out in these documents is not chaos, but tension. FBI field agents appeared hesitant. DOJ officials appeared determined. The memos show DOJ attorneys continuing to push draft after draft of a search warrant, even as FBI officials questioned whether the legal threshold had been met. This wasn't a case of agents refusing to act. It was a case of agents asking whether acting was justified. 6. Why this matters to conservatives. From a conservative perspective, this matters deeply. Law enforcement power is immense, and conservatives have long argued that when institutions lose neutrality, public trust erodes. The concern here isn't about protecting any individual from the law. It's about ensuring that the law is applied consistently, cautiously, and fairly, regardless of politics. When internal warnings are raised and overridden, Americans deserve to know why. 7. The role of DOJ officials. The memos reference senior DOJ figures involved in pushing the process forward. At the time, DOJ's Counterintelligence and Export Control Section maintained that probable cause existed, even as FBI field offices disagreed. That disagreement doesn't automatically mean the DOJ was wrong, but it does mean the decision wasn't unanimous, and that fact was never clearly communicated to the public. 8. The raid and its political impact. The August 2022 raid on Mar-a-Lago was unprecedented. It shocked the country and immediately became a political flashpoint heading into the 2024 election cycle. For Trump supporters, it appeared to confirm fears of a politicized justice system. For critics, it was framed as necessary enforcement of the law. What these memos reveal is that behind the scenes, the situation was far more complex than either narrative suggested. 9. The aftermath. Charges and dismissals. Following the raid, Special Counsel Jack Smith pursued charges related to classified documents. Those cases became central to the political landscape. But in July 2024, Judge Aileen Cannon dismissed the classified documents case, ruling that Smith had been improperly appointed. That ruling didn't address every underlying issue, but it fundamentally altered the legal trajectory, and it reinforces why the early decision-making process now matters even more. Congressional oversight enters the picture. With these memos now public, Congress has stepped in. House and Senate Judiciary Committees are examining how the investigation unfolded and whether proper procedures were followed. Former Special Counsel Jack Smith has been subpoenaed for testimony, and his legal team has indicated cooperation. Oversight isn't about relitigating elections. It's about ensuring institutional accountability. 11. The role of the National Archives and the White House. Another layer to this story involves the National Archives and the Biden White House. After Trump returned multiple boxes to the archives in early 2022, officials identified documents with classified markings. That triggered DOJ involvement and eventually White House coordination authorizing FBI access to the records. Again, coordination itself isn't improper, but transparency about how decisions escalated is essential. 12. Why the timeline matters. Looking at the timeline matters. January 2022, documents returned. Spring 2022, referrals and letters. June-July 2022, internal FBI objections. August 2022, raid executed. This wasn't a sudden emergency. It was a process that unfolded over months, which raises the question of why urgency eventually overrode hesitation. 13. The broader conservative concern for many conservatives, this case symbolizes something larger. It reflects fears that federal power can be accelerated once political pressure builds, even when career investigators express doubts. That doesn't mean laws shouldn't be enforced. It means enforcement must be insulated from politics. Once that insulation breaks, trust collapses. 14. What has and has not been proven? Let's be clear. These memos show internal disagreement. They show FBI caution. They show DOJ insistence. What they do not prove: that anyone acted with malicious intent, that laws were knowingly violated, that the raid was illegal by definition. But they absolutely justify further questioning. 15. Why this story is resurfacing now. The reason these documents matter now is simple. Donald Trump won the 2024 election, the case has collapsed, and Americans are reassessing what happened. With distance comes clarity, and with declassification comes accountability. These FBI memos don't deliver a verdict. They deliver context. They show that the Mar-a-Lago raid was not universally supported within the FBI. They show that serious legal concerns were raised and overridden. For conservatives, this reinforces a core principle. Power must be checked even, especially, when it targets someone controversial. And regardless of where one stands politically, that principle protects everyone.